Hello and welcome to Beginners Python and Machine Learning. My name is Tim Cummings. Today we're going to be looking at how to create PDF documents in your Python program. Now we've got our meetup group is designed to enable people to ask questions. Really, that's the so that's why we provide these live sessions, and we also do some in-person sessions as well. So today is just an online session, and you can ask questions either through YouTube chat or through the Slack channel, Beginners Python and Machine Learning chat channel that we have. If you'd like to join the Slack channel, then the instructions are below the video. Your questions can be about anything that can be to do with Python. We do look at different topics, but the topics are really can be just a way of investigating different parts of Python. And so we look at Python and we're looking at things. So we're going to be using a third-party library today called ReportLab, and but in doing that, you'll see just how to use third-party libraries in general and other parts of Python. We won't be using Google Colab, so you will need to have Python installed on your computer. It'd be good if you've done Meetup 177, which was last month, because that showed you how to send emails, and two of the tasks we'll do today are attaching a PDF document to an email and sending it. But if you haven't done the email session, that's okay. You can just do everything else in the PDFs, and just those two tasks you can just sit through. All right, now the link to the source code is on our GitHub site here. So we've got a site here, BPAML, for Beginners Python and Machine Learning sessions. So you can look at all the past sessions that I've done, certainly, and I've put all the code up in that GitHub site so you can have a look at it. So if you click on that link, it'll take you to GitHub and BPAML sessions, and you'll be able to see in the online folder all our meetups that we've been doing online. So this one is PDFs. So this is the code we're doing today, and last month we did the email code. So you can have a look at that one as well if you haven't done that already. But it might take you a while to set that up. So I'd probably just follow along the PDF section for now, and later on go through how to send emails, and then you can do the sections that require you to send PDF emails. All right, so the first thing we need to do is save this code. So I'm going to look at the raw version of the code and save that to my computer. So download, I'll just say save as, so more tools, save page as. And I've created a project here in my PyCharm projects called BPAML 177 for the email project, and I'm going to save Meetup 181 into that same folder. All right. So here's I'm running PyCharm Community Edition. It's a free integrated development environment designed just for Python programming, and I think it works really well. It takes care of a lot of stuff for you and gives you hints along the way if you're doing the wrong thing. So you can see here's the file that we've saved just now, and here's the one from last week, and you had to configure your own email too in that. Then you also gave you instructions last month in how to configure Gmail for sending. So that created a client secret.json file that you got off Google, and then when you ran the code, it created a token.json just for authentication to make sure you're who you say you are. Okay. So you remember that we have a requirements.txt file, and this is a convention in Python that you put all your third-party libraries in there. And what we're going to do today is just add ReportLab to that list. And you see how useful PyCharm is. It says, okay, you want to use ReportLab in this project, but you haven't installed it, and so we can just say install requirement. So I'll click on that, and down the bottom here you can see that it's installing the package, and that's installed it into our virtual environment. And virtual environments are a very important way of isolating each of your projects from each other, so that third-party libraries you install for one project don't interfere with how the operation of another project. Okay, so we've done this bit here. And I've provided links all the way through, so you can see you can go there for more documentation. If you haven't done last week's, you might want to comment out this line of the code, which is importing some our functions from the other meetup. So imports are how we bring in third-party and standard libraries. These first ones are standard libraries, and then these ones here are third-party libraries, ReportLab. Now I could have just said import ReportLab, but rather I just want to import the things that I'm going to be using, and then it makes the commands a lot shorter when I'm using them. So I say from this third-party library, and I even go down to the sub-packages, import this class canvas and A4 and all of these. So you can import several things from one place, or you can import from the same place several lines. Alright, now we'll race through these because we did them all for the email program. Set up the Python project, create the virtual environment, install the requirements. I can go back over this if anyone wants some more help, but I'm assuming you've done that from the last month's session. Or you can even just do that one line and it'll install it all for you. Okay, so we're up to task 4 here. We want to run the demo 4 to create a PDF document and save it to a file. So what I've done is I've created a function here, but I haven't called it yet. So your job is to call the function. And so in Python we create a function using def for define function. We give it the function name, and then we put in the parameters with the argument names that we need for that function, and that can be filled in later when we call it. So what are we doing? We're calling, we're using Canvas, which you saw we imported before, and Canvas is a class, so we're doing a bit of object-oriented programming here. So we instantiate a new object of the class Canvas. We're going to give it a file name, and we're just going to say it's going to be A4 PDF, and then we're going to do some things to it, call methods on the class. So c.drawString is how we call a method on the class. Give it a few parameters and save, and that saves the PDF file. So this is described in chapter 2 in ReportLab documentation, but let's just run it. So for me to call this, I just do the function name, and you see our PyCharm gave me a bit of autocomplete there. Now I give it a file name, so let's call it PDF demo 4, and our PDF file we want to end with .pdf, and let's just, the text that we're going to put in our PDF is just going to say my first PDF. Okay, so we've defined a function, and now we're going to call the function by just putting the function name and parentheses there, and then our parameters. Okay, now we can run this. If you look up here in PyCharm, you might see it says meetup 181. It doesn't for me. What I want to do is run the current file. Oh yeah, current file is an option, so I can do that one. and then I can run it by pressing the play button. Okay, so it ran it here. It told me how it ran it, and it gave me an exit code 0, which means everything went fine. And if I look down here in my list of files, I can see that I now have a PDF file. So let's open that. Now, good, I've got Acrobat on this computer. And if we look at that, there's no, it must be the first time I've used it. There's our PDF with my first PDF written in there. Let's see if we can zoom out. Here we go, zoom out. So you can see there's our A4 page, and we've specified what we want to write in the PDF and where we want to write it. So we've achieved our goal of creating a PDF. Okay, let's put that over to the side. Now if you see here, I've actually got a commented version of running this, and I've put in my first 2/5 of a PDF as the name. So let's try running that by uncommenting it. So comments are marked by those hash symbols, so we get rid of them. It'll run that line of code. And let's try the same thing, and this time rather than saying my first PDF, it'll say my first 2/5 of a PDF. And so we'll try running that. Permission denied because I've still got it open over here. So let's close it, and we'll run. Okay, and that's run. So let's open it. And you can see my first 2/5 of a PDF didn't show very well. It doesn't have the character for 2/5 in the built-in fonts that come with PDFs, so it wasn't able to display that. So that's just something you have to be aware of when you're creating these PDFs, and later on we'll show you how to overcome that problem. Alright, let's comment this and move on to task 5. Attach PDF file to an email. So this, if you run the session 177, you'll be able to do this. And we've imported send message via Gmail from the our other session, and also the message from string functions. So we create an email message. We open a file name. And the file name that we're going to open will be just PDF demo 4 that we've created. And this is how you open a file. We're going to open it for reading. The R means reading. You could do a W for writing. And we're going to open it as bytes. So you can open files as text or bytes, and we're going to open it as bytes. And then we're going to read those bytes into a data structure we call PDF data, and then we can attach that to, let's make this all bigger so we can see, add attachment. So add attachment wants to have the data, and we need to give it a MIME type. So it's going to be application/PDF and the file name so that someone can download it from their email. Okay, and return that. This function here creates the email message, and then what we're going to do here is send the email message. So we send the email message via Gmail. We take whatever got created by calling that function. You see I've nested this function inside the parentheses of that function. So it'll call this one first, get the create the email message, and then it'll pass that as the argument to send message via Gmail and send it. Okay, so let's give that a go, and hopefully if I've got all the permissions and everything set up properly, it should work. Okay, I don't know what this message means. File cache is only supported with that. But anyway, I don't know that I was using that, so that might still work. Alright, so let's check our Gmail and see if the message came in. attaching a PDF document. There it is. And so we've got the text of the email message, and here's our attached file, which is called PDF report. And I can view it, and you see my first square PDF. So once again, the 2/5 isn't showing because it doesn't have the Unicode characters for that font. Okay. All right, let me know if you're having success in doing these, or if you're having any problems in sending the emails. So I'll comment this out and let's move on to task 6. So there's quite a lot of stuff going on here. So feel free to ask questions about it. But you know, I set myself a few tasks of things that I'd like to be able to do before I set up these sessions, and so these are things that I've found useful in the past, and that's why I'm showing them and concentrating on them. But there's a whole lot to do with ReportLab. You know, there's pages and pages and pages in the user guide. Okay, now in this example that we've just done, we created a PDF file as a file, and there it was there, PDF demo 4 in the file system, and then we read that file back in so that we could send it. The question is it possible to do the same thing just in memory? And the answer is yes. And there's a couple of classes in the IO library that allows you to do this. One's called bytes.io if you want to use data as bytes, and another one's called string.io. They're the two main ones you use, and string is if you're looking at text. Okay, now PDFs are bytes, so we're using bytes.io. And when we call PDF demo 4, it was wanting a file or a file-like object, and bytes.io gives you a file-like object. So we call IO to bytes.io, gets stored in this variable PDF buffer. We're doing it in the width because it means that we don't have to remember to close our buffer at the end. At the end of the program, at the end of this code block here, when we go back out to an unindented line, it will automatically close, and that's what width does for us. And you might think that that's not saving you a lot, but it's actually a very good habit to get into, because lots of things can happen inside this code block that it could cause it to jump out. You might have a return function in there. You might have an exception gets called, and so suddenly you're going through exception handling, and all of those things would bypass a call to PDF buffer.close if they happened before it. But by putting it in a width and a code block, then the buffer.close will get called automatically before it goes off and does those other things. All right, so we've created our buffer, we've called PDF demo, we've stored the report, we've stored the all the bytes into report, and then we've just returned the report. So this is going to give us a PDF report as bytes. So what are we going to do? Oh, so this is another one we're going to send email. So maybe I was wrong. There was 3 sending emails. So send message via email, message with PDF attachment. So we're going to get the report as bytes. It's going to call PDF demo 4 with this new bit of text, PDF report from memory. We're then going to create the message with that PDF attachment, and then we're going to send that message. All right, now I've just uncommented that, so let's try running it and see if it works. Okay. There's our inbox. Task 6 has just come in, attaching a PDF, and that worked. PDF report from memory, so you can see it's got slightly different text, so we know that we've got the right one. And so that all worked. Excellent. Task 7, draw the string at different locations in text to work out the rough coordinates of corners. ReportLab provides units other than points, making it easier to position on the page. For example, millimeters, centimeters, inches. So up above, we've imported from this reportlab.lib.units a value called mm. It's really just a constant, but it makes the code a lot easier to read if we can use mm in the code, because by default PDFs, creating the PDFs, they use a measurement called points, and 1 point is equal to a 72nd of an inch, but which is, typesetters might be used to those units, but no one else really is. I guess we use that for font sizes in points, but this is using points for everything on the page. So if we were doing the drawString command, we would do it with points. So point x is just our value of x in points, and point y is our value of y in points, and 0, 0 is the bottom left corner. So as x increases, we go from left to right, and as y increases, we go from the bottom of the page up the page. So it's not really how you read a page, because you read the page from the top down, but it's how you would draw graphs, for example, or it's like that, your standard coordinate system that you're used to when you're drawing graphs. Okay, so we're going to draw a string, and all the string is going to be is a bit of text saying what our x and y values are, and then we're going to just draw a little crisscross line to show that where exactly that point is. And then we call show page. That saves everything on the current page and moves on to the next page. So then we loop through more loops doing the same thing. This time we're going to use millimeters for our units. So our millimeters x, so that's our x value in millimeters, and our millimeters y will be, so x will be going from left to right across the page, y will be going from the bottom up. And wherever we want to use them, we just say our millimeter x value times mm, which is our constant we imported, and it'll convert that to points. Just that multiplication does convert it to points, but it's quite easy code to read, and that's why they do it. Okay, so let's have a look at what this looks like. It'll probably make more sense once we run it. Okay, and PDF demo 7. Here it is. So I'll zoom out. So you can see all these little crosshairs we've drawn, and these are the coordinates that we've done. So x equals 0 point, y equals 720 point is this point here, and then as x increases, it goes across the page. So 144 point, 288 points, and I've gone up in 144s because 144 points is 2 inches. And you see down here 0, 0 is the bottom left, and 570 whatever that is on the right is the upper right. And now I've done the same thing in millimeters. This time I'm going up 50 millimeters at a time, which is about 2 inches. And you can see that that's all drawn everything in millimeters. So that just gives you an idea of the landscape on the page, where everything is in terms of sizes. So we know that a A4 piece of paper is 210 millimeters wide and 297 millimeters high. So these are the values that we would expect. Any questions? Alright, so now we know how to draw anything on the page, any text, anywhere on the page. So that's pretty useful. Possibly a bit tedious. Okay, task 8. Show page creates and saves the page and starts a new one if required. So task is here. Create a 2-page PDF. Alright, we've just done a 2-page PDF, but we're going to do another one. And so on the first page, we're going to create we're going to have a paragraph with 20 sentences in it. So I've just taken this bit of string, this string here, multiplied by 20, and that'll use the same string 20 times and make one big long string. We're going to draw it at 20 millimeters from the left and 250 millimeters from the bottom, working up, and we're going to draw that's going to be left justified, and then we're going to draw a center justified string at 105 millimeters from the left and 10 millimeters from the bottom that just says page 1, and do the same again for page 2. So let's run this and see what it looks like, and then see what we can deduce about how this worked. Okay, we can see PDF demo 8. Alright, so we've put in a paragraph here with 20 sentences, and it's just printed across the page and across the page, and you know, it's just gone in as text, so we can copy and paste, but it's hasn't wrapped on the page like you would normally expect in a word processor, and that's because it just doesn't do that. So we obviously can't just put long paragraphs on there and expect it to wrap if we're using drawstring. So this is a problem with drawstring. So let's see, use some of the, okay, so we're going to continue using drawstring, but we've just seen one of the problems with it. Now I mentioned before a PDF comes with some standard fonts, and there are 14 standard fonts, and we can actually get a list of them using calling get available fonts on our canvas object. And so let's create a PDF with those in, which gives the font name and a bit of text so we can see what it looks like, and see how we can, what flexibility we have with fonts. Okay. So here's our 14 fonts: Courier, Courier Bold, Bold Oblique, Oblique, Helvetica, Bold, Bold Oblique, Oblique, Symbol, Times Bold, Bold Italic, Times Roman, and Zap Dingbats. Okay, so there's a little bit of flexibility there. They've given us a monospace font, they've given us a sans serif font, and they've given us a serif font, and a couple of these symbol fonts, which you would use different characters to display in. But sometimes we want a bit more than that, so let's keep working through and see what we can come up with. So you can see also the styles, so we've got bold, bold italic, and just italic. Okay, so back in task 8 we saw the problem with a long line, a long paragraph just kept going on and on. So we can use this other object text if we're going to do text, and it will help us with that. So let's see how that goes. So we've got text line that will drop to the next line, and we've got text lines that will drop every time it comes to a carriage return or a new line in the text. Okay, so we'll do that. Once again, a 2-page. We haven't been checking the 2 pages, but they've been happening. So let's run demo 10 and see if this text object is going to help us. Alright, so text which stays on the same line, more text, a line that will drop to the next line. So remember, that was our first string, that was another string, and then a third string, but this third one we did with text line rather than text out. So let's check that out. So we did text out, and then text line. So that one was on one line. This one found the endpoint for the previous one and kept going on that same line, and this one kept going on the same line and then dropped a line so that anything after that will come on another line. So this one was a very long line with several sentences but no new line characters. So let's see how that drew. no new line characters, so that's not much good. It just kept going on and on and on off the page. The next one we tried was, so it's using text line. We then tried putting new line characters in there using text line, and that didn't work either. In fact, we got a black square where the new line character was, and then the same thing on the same line. And then this one we used text lines rather than text line, and so every time it came to a new line character, it jumped to a new line. So that's pretty useful. We didn't have to keep changing the Y value to say where we want the new text to draw. So we've got 50 sentences, and they just went off the end of the page, didn't start going on to page 1. So it was sort of useful, but still requires a bit of management if we want to use those functions for displaying text. So if you know the text is going to be short, you know how many lines it's going to be, then it's pretty safe to use it. If you don't know how long it's going to be, then this is going to be a bit of a problem when you're creating your PDFs. Okay, close a few of these. So there's a whole section, a whole chapter called Platypus in the user guide, and Platypus is really to solve these problems we're having with lots of text. So what Platypus does, it takes flowable text of more than one page long, and it flows paragraphs and works out all those problems so that you don't have to do it. All right. So we've got a demo here. So it's a bit more complicated to start with, but it really saves you a lot of work when you're trying to position text of this nature, flowing text. Okay, so we create a simple document template. We create a style sheet, and then we can set how we want the style to be. So we've set it up as a text alignment justified. We're going to have 18 point space before our paragraphs, and we're going to use and that's for our normal paragraph style, and we're also going to have a heading style that is going to be based on the sample style sheet of heading 2. And then what we do is we create a story. So a story is just a list of paragraphs. So that creates a list, and then we append into that list our paragraph. So paragraph is another object that's come from the library. We imported that from ReportLab.platypus, import paragraph, and this is just comments, but right at the beginning of the file, that's what we've got. And we're putting our title there, paragraphs of text, and the style of it. Then we're going to put in our text, and we've even put in, you can look at these tags, which like are HTML tags, and really it's solving the same sort of problem that HTML solves. So that's why it's good to borrow on the same language. Okay, let's read. This is a paragraph with, and we've got a number there. We just used an F string to put in what number it is. So I is going to be 1 to 10, with 10 sentences using strong and M tags, and then multiplied by 10 to make a decent sized paragraph. We append that to our list, and then we append a page break, another paragraph, and then we go through playing with some of these styles, and we just append them all into this story. So remember, story is just a list of paragraphs and page breaks, and even list items. So list items, another thing that we append in there. We're doing some fancy stuff here with columns, so I just sort of throw that in so you can see how to do multi-column stuff. another page break. We can format text using white space. So all the ones above we're using a proportionally spaced font, which means that if you try doing something like this ASCII text, ASCII art, where I've done beginner's Python, then that's not going to work because the spaces are much narrower than the normal characters, and so you'll lose all the alignment. But if we use pre-formatted rather than paragraph, it will preserve all the white space. And then once we've assembled all our story into a list, then we run this document build, and we say what we want to do on the first page. So we could just run the document build, but we can give it a bit more information. We say on every page, so on the first page and on later pages, we want to run this function number page, and that'll put a page number on for us. And number page is just a function we defined up here, and all it does, it draws the page number at the bottom of the page. Canvas.getPageNumber, so we can use that to find out what page number it's currently on. Alright, so let's have a look at what that looks like once we run it. So a lot of these things are problems I've had to solve, and so that's why I've put them all into one PDF here, PDF Demo 11. And here we go. So we've got our heading style, then we've got our paragraph style, and remember each paragraph's got 10 sentences. And in there we've got a bit of bold text using the strong tag. We've got a bit of italic text using the EM tag for emphasize. And we've got the text changing each paragraph. So this is paragraph 0, paragraph 1, paragraph 2. Let's have a look what happens when we get to the end of the page. Paragraph 5, halfway through the paragraph, it gets to the end of the page and jumps to the next one. And we get a page number drawn in for us, and that's the function that we defined to create that page number. And I think if you look, we drew a line, yes. So we use canvas.line to draw a line just above the page number. Okay, now here's some of the examples of the style. So this is our normal paragraph style. Body text, italic. Then we've got heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each time we're just using this bit of text, paragraph style, to see what it looks like, the same bit of text in each one. So title is centered, heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are all left aligned. Bullet just looks like normal unordered list. Well, they're not doing anything. Here we go. These are the built-in functions and classes listed in 2 columns. So I've got them from somewhere. And the columns go over a page. So that's pretty clever. Like goes 1 to 24 here, and it goes, oh, I'm at the end of the page. So it's put 25 to 48 in the next column, and then on the next page it's gone 49 onwards up here, up to 102, and then back to 103 on the right hand side of the page. And then our formatting text using white space, beginner's Python, and that's the end. So that's a pretty good demo document. It shows you lots of different things that you can do. Any questions with that? All right, so is there anything new in there for style, name style? Oh, okay, so where it said paragraph style, that was the type. I'm using the Python type function to see what type style was, and in all cases, I think it was paragraph style was the type. Let's see if there were any others. Paragraph, 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 list style. So there, unordered list is of type list style, ordered list is of type list style. Okay, then I went built-in functions and classes. So I did import this standard library from Python that just says tell me all the built-in functions and classes in Python, and I called directory on that, and then I just put them all into this list. So that's a way of just creating some data to show, but it's also useful because you can have a look through them and see if there's any functions in Python that you'd like to use. So for example, we've used the type function here. We've used range in today's session, which is good for for loops if you want to go iterate over a range of numbers. There's probably some others we've used. Okay. Very good. Right, now one of the tasks I thought to myself when I'm setting this up, I thought how would we embed a font in this, and that could be useful if I want to put in a font that can display some of those Unicode characters such as 2/5 that we found earlier that you can't display in the built-in fonts that are the standard fonts that any PDF viewer can use. So we're going to create a table that lists all the fonts, and so what are we going to do? Oh yeah, so I did some research and I found that there's no font actually contains all the Unicode characters, but Google have created a no-toe font that together can make up the challenge for them is to have every Unicode character available in some font. So we're going to grab these fonts. Now you can do it in I've got some commands here. So what we're going to do, we're going to make a directory called fonts. Then we're going to change directory into that, and it's just going to be over here. And then we're going to run the curl command to get them to download them from Google. Now I tried running this in PowerShell and it was incredibly slow, but then I ran the same command in Bash, even on Windows, and it was a lot faster. So let's see what I've got here. So I can call up terminal here, so that's taken me to PowerShell, but I can choose a different one. I'm going to choose git bash because I know that's going to be faster. Alright, so then all I need to do is copy these commands and paste them in here. Now pasting in git bash is not Control V, it's Shift Insert, I think. Yep, Shift Insert. So that's gone off to Google and it's downloading the files after creating the directory. Now it's unzipped them all. So these are the commands for downloading. That's the same for Bash and PowerShell. If you are using PowerShell, you can't use unzip like this. You have to use this command, and remember the dot at the end. And so you just copy all those and then copy this one here. Alright, so now we've created our fonts folder and we've created all the true type fonts here that we've unzipped out of the zip files. And we'll probably find there's the zip files at the bottom. Okay, so those are the fonts we're going to use because they've got a lot of these characters in that we want. Now I thought we'd also use one of the fonts on our computer, so I chose Arial as one that's on pretty much everyone's computer. But I found that on different operating systems, the files where Arial is stored are called different things. So on some it's called Arial space bold.ttf, on others it's Arial underscore bold.ttf, and another one's Arial bd.ttf. So I needed to write some code that's going to work on different operating systems, Mac, Linux, Windows, and even with different file names, still be able to register these files. So what I've done it using this form of the for command. Now this is one you don't see that often, but it's a useful way of doing it. It's the for else command. So what else does, it only ever gets called if break is never called inside the loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop through this files by font, and then within each one of these we're going to loop through all these possible names that it could have. And we're going to try to register the font with that name. If that register font doesn't work, it'll say except. It'll throw an exception. So it'll jump down to here and continue says go on to the next item in the for loop. So if we tried Arial space bold.ttf and it didn't work, it'll then go on to the next one, which is Arial _ bold. So it'll go up to there and it'll try that. And say that one didn't work either, it'll jump down to here, continue, and now it'll try Arial BD. Now if that one works, we get a break. And if it breaks out of this loop, then it'll break out of the for and out of the else and continue on to this next outer loop. So that's great. But if it never gets to the break, then after it's finished this for loop, it'll get to the else, and so else will only get called if break never called. And then we go, okay, we've got a problem. None of the file names we've tried works, so let's raise our own error and give a message of what's happened. So I'll just say all file names for font name failed, and then I'll say these are the file names that we tried. But hopefully this is going to run for us. So let's keep going. All right, so that's just to get Arial working. Then I want to also register these other fonts here. In this case, we've downloaded the file, so we know what the file names are called. They're going to be the same on every computer. But if you didn't download them, then it's going to cause an error. And so what I've just said, if there's an error, all we'll do is use Arial instead. And so Arial's our backdrop in case any of these work. And Arial will work for a lot of those Unicodes that we want, but not all of them. Okay, and so that's how we're going to register all the fonts. Then we register it. That's good. So we want to embed these fonts, so let's register them. So I'll comment this line to register the language fonts, and then we're going to run this next bit, which is so the sample that we're creating. We're going to make a 3-page invoice, and it's going to have a header that gets put on every page, but the header on the first page is going to be different to the header on later pages. And then we're going to have a table of items that we're putting on this invoice. So this is good if you're writing some sort of accounting software and you want to be able to produce invoices, PDFs. It's a very useful thing. PDF demo 12, and we're going to save that. All right, so let's run it and see what they look like, and then we'll go. We can go back over the code and see what we did to achieve that. Okay, so this is our invoice. I've put a logo up here, just 3 rectangles. We've got a nice big heading space on the front page. We've got the word invoice. You probably put an invoice number in there. Today's date. We've got page numbering on the invoices, so they know how many are there. And what I've done is I've chosen a whole bunch of Unicode characters, many of which are actually not digits. So for example, Ethiopic has the Ethiopian number for 10, and it looks like this. They have a number for 20 and 30 and 40, and so I've used these numbers, the values that they are, as our prices in our invoice, and I've just put some random quantities to make an extended price. They've even got a number for 10,000. So there's probably some Roman numerals in there as well. Oh no, and fractions. So they're the ones. I didn't do Romans, but I've done all these other different sorts. And you can see they're all displaying pretty well. I think we got all of them showing okay. So our embedded fonts worked. We put a total here. We've got page numbering, page 3 of 3. It's even worked out the total number of pages, which was something we weren't doing before. And you can see our heading on each of these pages 2 and 3 is smaller than the one on the first page. I've put headings on the table, so when the table's spanned across another page, it redrew the headings so that we can see the column headings. I've even put a bit of color in there for the style, and the total at the bottom. Okay, so there's quite a lot going on to make that, but you can make very professional looking invoices just using these tools that are here. So this is how we set the style for the table. We've got a font name. We've put a line above, a line below. So that's for the I think that's for the table headings, and these are the red, green, blue colors that we've chosen. A bit of a background for that heading. We've got different alignments. So what's that for? Different columns, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 columns there. I can't even remember what all these things mean. But that's the beauty of this. Once you set it up, you don't have to remember it later. So here's our column widths. There should be 6 column widths. Yep. And which rows we want to repeat. We just want to repeat row 1. Okay. All right, so our final task is going to be, can we do that, send that invoice as an attachment to an email? And so it's just the same thing. We just use io.bytes.io as PDF buffer. We just pass our PDF buffer into PDF demo 12 command, and then we send that message via email. So we'll run that. I've got a bit of logging happening as well, just so you can see what's going on. Let's go check our emails to see if it came through. That's task 6. So this one might take a bit longer because it's embedded fonts. I don't know how big. Let's have a look how big the file is. So it's only 33K, so it's not huge. So it's only embedded the characters of the font that it needs. It hasn't embedded every part of the font. So why didn't that come through? Hooray, no spam. Send message. Looks like it sent it. certainly created it before, PDF Demo 12. Okay. Anyway, one of the other interesting things here was how to get that page numbering working. And I found this bit of code here at how to do page X of Y in ReportLab. So it's a bit complicated. So what we're doing here is we're creating a new class that inherits everything from Canvas, and then we use that new class rather than the Canvas class when we're trying to draw things. And that overrides these methods, show page and save. So show page is we save each of the page states as it calls show page. And so it doesn't actually, and then starts a new page. It doesn't actually run the Canvas show page until right at the end, because it needs to go back and add the numbered page to each of those pages. And it does it here when we get the save. That's when we go back through. We set the state back to each of those page states. We draw in the page number, and then we call the Canvas show page, and that happens right at the end. And then we call the save from our superclass. But in saying that, once you've set this up, you don't have to know how it works. You just call it, and for each different project that you're using it, you just change it how you draw the page number. You just say where on the page you want it to be and what text needs to go there. And then when you want to call it, we do that doc.build, and we add in page maker, a canvas maker here, and that's where we say we want to use numbered canvas rather than the normal canvas. We'll have one more check. I'm going to try setting it again. So let's run this again. And that finally came through. Oh, maybe it came through the other time. It's just it said number 6 when I was expecting number 12. Okay, and all our fonts look like they've worked in the PDF, so the embedded fonts have been embedded properly. We get all our functions like 2/5, which we remember didn't work before, and everything looks as it did. Okay, well that's the end. Next week, Arun's going to be doing some machine learning using ChatGPT, and so there's going to be a few people who are quite interested in that. And the week after that, it's going to be an absolute beginner session, and it's going to be in person at Brisbane Business Hub in the Queen Street Mall at 155. There'll be free pizza, so please register for that. We've had a few people registering on Meetup, and they've gone straight to the waiting list. That's because the Meetup is not actually where we want you to register. You have to register with Brisbane Business Hub, and the link is in the Meetup event. So please, if you've registered with Meetup, please also register through the Eventbrite link, which is in the Meetup description, so that Brisbane Business Hub know how many people to cater for. Okay, thanks for attending. I hope you've learned something, and I think you'll find creating PDFs very useful. Bye.